Welcome back and welcome if it's your first time here. My name's Clare and this is the second week of 4 weeks that I'll be teaching, doing a bit of Buddhist philosophy and a bit of meditation. So I'll start with the refuge and bodhicitta prayer, which I said last week for people who are new. In this tradition, we always start with sort of turning our mind towards the inspiration that we're looking for, and people that inspire us. Like, you know, if you're Christian, you can think of Jesus, think about the life of Jesus and how inspiring his actions were. So here we think about the Buddha and what he taught, and the main thoughts of the Buddha was to do with bodhicitta, which is a mind of wishing to free oneself from one's own suffering in order that then you may be of benefit to others. You learn how to take care of your own mind, and in so doing you become much more aware of how other people are suffering the same as you. So the more that you can clear your own mind, the more that you are aware of the suffering of others, the more you want to actually inspire and help them. And it doesn't mean you go out and proselytise. That's such a no-no with this tradition. It's more you live your life the best way you can, and then other people want to be around you and just get inspired by your actions. So they need never know that you're Buddhist or that you're doing these practices, but they just sort of are, you know, there's something about you that people like and get inspired by. And so I'll start with the refuge and bodhicitta. When the Tibetans pray, they put their thumbs together like this. I'm not asking anyone to do this, I'm just explaining. And I'll explain a few things about this tradition and what we do here, so that if you think things are a bit old, I'll try and explain. They don't put the hands flat when they're praying. They put their two thumbs in, and it's like you're holding what they call the wish-fulfilling jewel. And the wish-fulfilling jewel is this mind of bodhicitta. And you can visualise it as like a sort of radiant, small blue egg or something, radiating light. And so you're holding this idea that I want to become enlightened myself in order that then I can benefit all other beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma and the highest assembly from the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections. May I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma and the highest assembly from the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections. May I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma and the highest assembly from the virtuous merit that I collect by practicing giving and the other perfections. May I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So that's one thing. Another thing was the people that we here would have seen me prostrating when I walked in. And that's another thing we generally do before any practice, whether to sit down and meditate or sit down to listen to the teachings. And it's absolutely not a requirement. And I remember when I did Monday nights for quite a while before I ever went into the Tuesday night teachings with Geshe Doga, who lives here. And he draws quite a crowd, so there were quite a few people here, and nothing had been explained to me. So he came in and he prostrates, and he prostrates the same way as we prostrate, and he's prostrating to the Buddha. He's also prostrating to the seat of the teachings, the throne. We call it the throne. So this is where the teachings are expounded from. So he's prostrating to that as a kind of important place, because it's the teachings that will free our minds. So there's all power in in the actual teachings themselves. So he prostrates, and then when he sits down, the whole room started prostrating. And I was like, I'm not doing that. It's not, it was so not in my vocabulary to prostrate to anybody. And it was very, very odd. So when I sort of realised, I found out what was going on, and I'm quite comfortable with it now. So that, again, you're prostrating to the Buddha and to the teachings and to the teacher, if you like. And it's not that we're kind of venerating them. We are venerating them, but it's not like... how do I explain the difference? It's like, we see our future enlightenment in this, and it's worth prostrating to. So it's not actually the person themselves, it's that they are the conduit for the teachings. So that when you prostrate, it's actually a form of meditation in itself. When you touch your forehead to the floor, you can visualise all your negativities, say in the form of black smoke or black oil or something, pouring out of you and into the ground and completely disappearing. And then when you stand up, you can bless your body, your speech and your mind with your hands, so that the Buddha is then, or that the enlightened energy blesses your body, speech and mind to purify them, so that you're filled with sort of love and compassion and positive energy. And then again you prostrate. You do it 3 times, and I think that's again to do with body, speech and mind. But you do it 3 times, and each time visualising all your negativities, all your anger and frustration and jealousy, pride, attachment, everything sort of pouring out of you, everything, all your problems disappearing. So it's a beautiful practice. It's actually, there are retreats where you do full prostrations, full body prostrations, and you stand up, and it's quite, you feel light. You feel really good for doing it. It's exercise as well. We were at lunch one time with Geshe Doga, who's the teacher here. He's a 90-year-old Lama. He's climbed over the Himalayas in 1959 with a whole lot of other people, and has lived in India, and then was sort of asked to come and teach in Australia. So he's quite an extraordinary person. But we were having lunch and someone was talking about how they were, needed to get fit and stuff, and someone said, "Oh, walking's good." "Oh no, I can't walk because I've got a sore hip." And then it was like, "Oh, swimming's good." "Oh no, I can't swim. I'm not good at swimming. I can't do swimming." And Geshe Doga was sitting at the end of the table listening, and he said, "Prostrations." So it's like yoga actually. So anyway, so that's another thing. Also, another thing we do in the Gompa, and it's no fault on anybody, that you would never really point your feet towards the altar, because we bring our negativities in, and that's fine. Sitting like that is fine. You don't have your feet up like that. It's just because you carry your negativities from the, it's symbolic of bringing the dirt in from outside. And the soles of your feet? Yeah, the soles of your feet. You wouldn't, you need to stretch every now and then, but sort of just sitting comfortably is fine. But sometimes you want to stretch your legs out, and you wouldn't do that. You might sort of try and stretch sideways or something, but not be pointing them towards the Buddhas. And when people do that out of not knowing, it's so not a problem. It's you never really worry. The other thing is we don't put any of the books or anything on the floor or on beds or on seats, just as another sort of mental sort of sign of respect for the teachings. So just some little things to know, that, if you come in here, that just a few things. And people will tap you on the shoulder or something, tell you. But, yeah. So, we've been doing the 8 verses of thought transformation, and my computer's turned off. Last week we did the first 2 verses, and this week we'll do the second 2. And I've been so clever and divided it up, and now I can't find the things I want to find. One of the instructions that I read with this was to do, between reading the verses, you do a short Chenrezig meditation. Now, to most of you, can I have a show of hands again who's new to this from the last couple of weeks, from this week and last week? Okay. So I'll explain a lot of this as well for you. In the Tibetan tradition, there's a lot of imagery, and so we do a lot of visualization. We can do, and we'll do a short meditation on the breath and on the mind in a minute. And in some traditions, that's what you do. You watch your mind. And when you start to do this, you come away thinking, my God, I can't meditate. There's so much going on, I can't concentrate. But that's actually not a bad sign, because you're actually becoming aware of how much is going on in your mind. And then when you start to watch it while meditating, you can just sort of let thoughts go. It doesn't stop your thoughts, but you can realise that you can sort of let them go, and they're sort of passing through your mind. And your mind is described as a clear and reflective, or clear and knowing space. So your mind is actually quite spacious and clear, and through habits, and Buddhism would say previous lifetimes, but even just in this lifetime, everything that's ever happened and all the people you know and your daily activities, it's all happening in your mind all of the time. And that's just thoughts. It's not the mind itself. It's passing through the mind. So that when we can clear away some of this, we get much more in touch with a peaceful space. And there's actually great power in it. It gives you energy to kind of do it, to just give yourself a holiday, give yourself a break from the constant chatter that's going on. And then realising that it is just thoughts. And that I was talking last week about how I had some issues at work and I was very angry, and then I was doing this retreat and all of the issues were coming up in my mind while I was doing this particular meditation. And, 2 things. It was like, oh, okay, I'm not sure that I'm completely free of my anger for all of these things, because they're coming up in my mind. But the other thing that I'd found, and the instruction was, just let thoughts pass. Don't follow them. Don't have a conversation. Just, they arise, okay. Go back to looking at the clarity of the mind, and the thoughts just dissipate. And so the anger goes with it. So yes, these things happened, and yes, they were wrong, but my mind being angry isn't helping me. And it actually gives you more clarity. And when you can start to do this, and it's by actually acknowledging the thought and letting it go that it dissipates. So we'll do that in a minute. But as I was going to say, the instruction with this practice of the 8 verses is to do, after each verse, to do a short Chenrezig meditation. So we have all these images that represent different states of mind. So green Tara over here is compassionate action. So if something's going on, you meditate to green Tara that when you want something, basically. It's not like she's going to give it to you, but it's sort of, she will arrive to help you. And so by thinking about green Tara and saying her mantra, she can help you through a situation if you need her help. Not that she can change the situation, but it changes your mind. It actually helps your mind to meditate on these images. And I shouldn't say this, but sometimes if I'm looking for a car park, I will do green Tara. Has anyone else ever done that? You ever done that? Yes. So other people have done it too. And strangely, it kind of seems to work. But it's a bit of a waste of karma. That's some karma that has been stored in your mind, that you've just generated the positive energy to find a car park, and now that karma's gone, you've burnt it up. So I might have saved it for something a bit more important. But so that's kind of how green Tara works. But if you're in a desperate situation, green Tara is good to turn to. Now, it's a compassionate state of mind. It's Tara. The thing about Tara is Tara's there to help, green Tara especially. White Tara is health and long life. Every year we do, Geshe Doga does a health and long life empowerment of White Tara. So a lot of people show up for that. And so by meditating on White Tara, especially if you're sick or something, it's really good to meditate on White Tara. And again, it's not like it's going to cure you, but it can help your mind dealing with something really difficult. But there are stories, and Geshe will tell stories of people that actually have been really helped by doing White Tara. So Chenrezig is the Buddha of compassion. And Chenrezig is the first, every child in Tibet learns the Chenrezig mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. It's the first thing. As little children, this is what they learn, and Chenrezig is. They say that the Dalai Lama is like a physical representation of Chenrezig. The Tibetans sort of see him as a perfect sort of being, and he kind of is. And he promotes love and compassion. He says, "My religion is simple. My religion is kindness." And that's what his message to the world, and people just are so impressed with him. I saw this thing on Instagram with Gene Simmons. Does everyone know who Gene Simmons is? What was the band called? Kiss. Now, I don't know if you're aware of Gene Simmons. I've seen a few things of him over the years, but I just saw this video during the week of... I thought, oh, that's Gene Simmons. It was on Instagram. I thought, oh, I'll watch that. And he's talking to someone saying, oh, I've just come here today because I just wanted to sort of say hello and pay my respects. And they pan across and he's talking to the Dalai Lama. He's sitting in a room with the Dalai... there's a lot of people there, but he was up the front and His Holiness was sort of nodding. And he said, I really wanted to tell you that my mother, she was a Holocaust survivor, and he said my mother was very tough, and and she didn't really like people that much, and she'd sort of make this noise if a politician was talking on the TV. She'd go, oh, and then if someone else was, whatever was happening, she was always scoffing at people, and even great famous people. And she said one day the Dalai Lama came on the TV and she was listening, and he said something to her and she said shh to him and kept listening, and then she said something really nice about the Dalai Lama, that she was really touched and impressed with him, and that Gene Simmons thought that he would share that with the Dalai Lama, and that he had a lot of respect for him. So I'm digressing, but that's how he impacts people. And it was my first contact with Buddhism. I saw him on the TV. I'd never heard of Tibet. He'd just won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1990, 89. Somewhere, I think it was 89, 90, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for his non-retaliation and spreading, love. And I saw him talking on the TV, and he said, I'm thankful to my Chinese brothers and sisters for teaching me the real meaning of compassion. And I was like, and I remember saying to my dad, who is this person? And he said, he's the Dalai Lama, and there he's in robes, kind of. I had never seen. I didn't know Tibet existed. I knew nothing about it, but at that time he was the leader of the country as well, not just a spiritual leader. And so I was so impressed that a world leader would talk about love and compassion, and that was his sort of bent on things as a world leader. And then in 1992 he actually came to Melbourne, so I thought, I'll go and see him, and that was it. I was so moved by what he was saying, because the world is always in a mess. I don't know what was going on at the time. I think Russia had just invaded Afghanistan or something. There's always a mess going on, and I was young and I was distressed by stuff and what was happening. And then suddenly there's this person with this extraordinary message, and I was like, nobody talks like that. What's going on here? So it piqued my interest, and that's what he does. He sort of, with that simple message, that's how he touches people. So they see him as a kind of, he's like Chenrezig in human form. So we'll do a little bit of meditation now, and then I'll talk about some of these verses, and then we'll do a short Chenrezig meditation. And what you do is we will visualise Chenrezig above our heads. Now, the deities aren't necessarily actual people. They're a visual way of getting in touch with their energy, with the energy. So the way they hold their hands, the way these images are drawn and created is very, very specific. There's lots of grids and ways that they actually create these images, because they have to be perfect. They have to be quite specific, because if you're going to meditate on them and they're not drawn right, then it's not going to work. So they are quite interesting, the way it all works. So we'll just sit for a minute and do a bit of breathing meditation. So you sit as comfortably as you can with your legs crossed or feet flat on the floor, and you have your spine as straight as possible. So it's like, sometimes they describe it as being like a hook pulling you up so that the energies can flow. And bringing the mind inwards and focusing on the breath. And just when you're focusing on the breath, because meditation is a mental activity, you can just mentally follow the breath in and follow the breath out. And you're trying to do this with just your normal breath, just relaxing. And following an in-breath and an out-breath. If you want to count your breaths, that's counted as one. And you're also trying to not make any noise, like not sort of breathing heavily with this. It's meant to be kind of a silent practice. So just mentally bringing your mind inwards and just focusing on the in-breath and the out-breath. And maybe count to 3 or 7 or 21. And if you lose count, just remind yourself. Just be alert of what's going on and bring yourself, I've lost my concentration, come back to the breath. And just mindfully watching the breath. And then when you lose it again, just be aware and then come back. Remind yourself to come back to just focusing on the breath. not following any thoughts, just always bringing your mind back just to the breath. You can always follow up on any thoughts later, but for now just letting them pass and dissolve back into the mind. Okay, just bring your mind back to the room. So, verses 3 and 4 of what we call the 8 verses of thought transformation. So the whole practice of Buddhism is to work with the mind, and we have habits of mind, and usually we're reacting to whatever's going on, either with strong attachment or strong aversion and anger, and that causes all the other problems of jealousy and pride. We often are jealous of people that have more than us or the things that they want. And we're competitive with people that are sort of on an equal standing with us. And we look down on people that, or beings that don't, meet our standards or aren't as good, or what we think of aren't as good as us, we look down on. So that's our kind of normal treadmill of our mind. So verse 3 says, being vigilant, the moment a delusion appears in my mind, endangering myself and others, I shall confront and avert it without delay. So again, it's talking about watching your mind. When these things happen, I think it especially anger, seems to, it's a biggie for me, can cause so many problems. It's never worked well for me if I react with anger. They say take 10 breaths or don't write an email if you're angry and stuff like that. Usually things can go very pear-shaped if you respond with anger. They can go downhill very quickly. And yes, whatever caused that anger, it might be real, it happened. But by responding and retaliating, personally I've always ended up making much more worse problems for myself. So it's saying when you see anger arising in your mind, to be aware of it and understand that it's only going to hurt you and that it never ends well. And that if the antidote to anger is patience. So in that moment thinking, okay, I need to be patient, and patience isn't hanging on by your fingernails and thinking I need to be patient. It's actually not being angry, just saying, okay. Now, and that they have in this tradition, and I know in other traditions, and I think AA say it, if there's something you can do about an issue, you act. So why be angry? If you can find a solution, act and do something about it. So there's no point in being angry or being driven by anger. And if there's nothing you can do about a situation, why be angry? Why be unhappy? Because there's nothing you can do about it. So the only person who's going to suffer is you from your own anger. So you need to be able to kind of say, all right, there's nothing I can do about it for the moment, and not get upset. And that might sound hard, but sometimes if you practice this, it actually works. It's like, all right, I haven't got any control in this situation, so I'm not even going to try. And you back off. And it might mean losing. And that's another one of the verses. Sometimes you just have to give the victory to others. And strangely, it sounds counterintuitive, but it actually works. And you're not being a doormat in that moment. You're just sort of saying, right, there's no point in arguing, there's no point in being angry. I'll just let them have it. If that's what they really, really want, if that's what they think is going to make them happy, just let them have it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but what you're doing is protecting your own mind in that moment. And then if there is something you can do about the situation, then you do it. So attachment's the same thing. When we want something, someone so badly, it's sort of doing our heads in. We just want a new car or a new piece of clothing or jewellery or a job or something. We're completely and utterly attached and making ourselves a bit crazy with it. The only one who is actually causing suffering. We normally think of attachment as a good thing because we have to have things and we need relationships and stuff. But attachment is very different to love. And love, the definition of love in Buddhism is wishing the other to be happy. So normally with our attachment, someone makes us happy and we say, I love you. And when they don't make us happy, we don't love them anymore. And that's, it's a very sort of, we work on a very kind of surface, fairly shallow definition of love. And it's usually about what's making me happy. But love, real love, is wishing the other to be happy. And even in, if you meet people that their relationship is broken down, they've separated, but they still have a friendship. Then people can say, I still love that person, but I just can't be with them because of whatever. And that's love. But the relationship might have started and they had attachment for each other and got married and it was all wow and wonderful, and then suddenly they sort of didn't like each other anymore. So it starts with attachment and we're kind of driven crazy by it. And I mean, I've talked about before a guy that I worked with years ago. He bought a really expensive car then he couldn't afford the repayments, and so he went to the boss and demanded a raise to pay for his car that he loved. And I said to him, why don't you just get rid of the car? Because it was like he had financial problems and it was really difficult for him. And I was like, get rid of the car. And he was like, no, I like it. But it was causing him terrible problems. And he just had, and it was like he liked being seen driving around in this flash car, and that was probably, that's feeding his pride and superiority and all that sort of stuff. But he was having sleepless nights with his financial worries because of it. So it just, all that attachment was causing him so much grief, and it just didn't kind of add up, it didn't equate. So that's what we do. So they're saying that the antidote for attachment is to meditate on the downside of what's going on. And he could seriously have meditated on, like, is it really worth it? And generally, whatever we want, you can sort of ask yourself, is it really worth it? Is it worth the grief that this is the disturbance in my mind to have this thing? And you sort of realise you can actually function on without it. But think about the downside. And they say with attachment for other people, and this is kind of shocking and a bit gross when you first hear it, but they sort of say, well, look, you've attachment to something that is impermanent, it's ageing and eventually going to pass away. But also, if you actually look at sort of what you're attached to, it's usually a surface thing, it's the way someone looks. And I just was reading during the week, the Dalai Lama was saying, well, just peel a piece of the skin off and put it on the shelf for a week and see how much you're attached to that, So you go, oh, they've got perfect skin. But if you don't shower for a few days, it's not, the body beautiful is not as great as we think it is. And I think this was sort of designed for the monks to think about as well in the monastery. It's sort of like, don't... the body beautiful is a kind of fantasy, and that our attachment for people is a fantasy. And also that we are a bunch of atoms, but a mind as well that's constantly changing and moving, so that it's this sort of energy that we're sort of attaching ourselves to and creating a fantasy about that doesn't really exist, and that's where the problem lies. And they actually say the root of all of our problems is attachment, that we're attaching to something that doesn't really exist. And we all create a story for ourselves about whatever it is that we're attached to. And it's very easily sort of understood when you think someone that you really don't like, there are other people in that person's life that really do like them and love them and see them completely differently to the way you see them. Or someone that you're really attached to or that you really, really like, and people go, yeah, no, I can't see it. And we're all doing it. We're all constantly creating a story in our heads. Yes, there's something out there, but we layer onto it and we exaggerate. And it's like that thing with a relationship that breaks down when you first met the person and they made you really happy and you kind of ignored some of the downside. Someone's agreeing out there. You ignore it. You think, oh, yeah, it's not, or you pretend you didn't see it or something. Just even someone being rude to a waiter in a restaurant, which is so not cool. And, you know, say you're out on a date and someone, but you kind of like, you've got this attachment thing going on and you ignore it. And then over time, these other things start to sort of become more prominent in your mind and you start to not like them. Well, they do and say things that are unpleasant, and then you start to not like them. And so what are they? Are they the person you fell in love with that you thought was fabulous and that was sort of so kind and doing everything for you? Or are they the sort of angry weirdo that they've turned into? I don't know. So, in fact, it's your mind is telling you these stories, these different stories. It's not like they were one or the other, but these things are kind of manifesting to your mind. And, you know, so this is what we do, and then we get really attached. But nothing ever lasts forever, and we know that. Everything is impermanent, and everything is changing, and people's minds are changing, and your mind's changing. So that if we're constantly aware of this, it loosens the grip of attachment. And again, it's like, is it really worth it? And so that's the way to kind of look at when you, especially, you know, yes, we need things and people in our lives, of course, but by being overly attached and dependent on others, when it changes or stops, we suffer terribly. So that if we're aware that this is the nature of things, we don't have such strong attachment. So that when it changes, it's not that difficult to deal with, because we don't have the expectation that it's going to last forever. Because normally we think we have high expectations of other people, and when they don't meet them, we're unhappy. And we also expect that things are going to last forever, and when they don't, we're unhappy. But if we're aware that that's the nature of things, that this is how it's always going to play out, your attachment lessens. So, they talk about closed-minded ignorance here as a delusion, and that's when you're sort of really stuck in your own way of thinking. That, you know, I'm always right, and I'm not listening to you. I know better, and I'm not listening. And I think we all do that to some degree. It's very hard to just stop and listen. And we often listen to people so that we can then speak. You know, we might give them a bit of time to speak, but we want to speak. And so when we need to sort of learn to listen more carefully to other people and hear and sort of see into their hearts a bit more as well, and not be so attached to our own point of view as well. And then that again comes back to nothing is as solid and permanent as we seem to think it is, and that maybe the way we're seeing things is too extreme. And again, it's creating a story that we want, that fits our agenda. And we have to be really careful of that. And our minds are very tricky. We're always kind of excusing ourselves or tricking ourselves into that, you know. And you know, we like to think of ourselves as nice people, and I always did think of myself as as a nice person. And when I started studying this stuff, I was kind of going, oh, okay, there might be a few tweaks that need tweaking there, a few things that yes, and owning it is really difficult as well. But what we're trying to do is shift our minds a little bit, and that by owning it and being aware of it, it can lessen. And then we're happier. We're not so extreme in whatever we're sort of thinking and doing and demanding of the world. And it's actually, you sort of think, oh, well, then you've got nothing. But it's not like that. It's more like you've got peace. You actually sort of Imagine not having all of the thinking about the past and, thinking about the future and wanting this and wanting that, and just being constantly driven to just find a sort of level of peace. And then you can function. And then you actually can enjoy without freaking out all the time. So it's not like having nothing, it's more like finding a way to actually really enjoy things. And not sort of having, not great expectations that they're going to last forever or whatever, but enjoying them while they're there and letting go. Okay, running out of time. I'll quickly go into verse 4. Whenever I see beings that are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent negative actions and suffering, I shall hold such rare ones dear as if I had found a precious treasure. So again, like, what the hell? Sort of, seriously? Do I have to? But again, it comes back to that thing we were talking about last week of all sentient beings. Everyone else feels the same way you do. Everyone is looking for happiness. Everyone is looking for a sense of peace and trying to make sense of the world and their lives. Everybody. We don't wake up in the morning. I can't imagine many people wake up in the morning and saying, I really want to suffer today. I'm going to have a terrible day and I really want it, and it's going to be, not fun. And people don't wake up thinking like that. That you wake up looking forward to a new day and getting on with creating whatever it is for yourself and people. And we all want to be happy. We're all looking for some sense of satisfaction in the world, and we never seem to find it. Lama Zopa used to quote the Rolling Stones, I can't get no satisfaction, back in the 60s. The Lamas first met people back in the 60s and the 70s, and there was all the hippies and the music and stuff, and they used to talk about Mickey Mouse, having a Mickey Mouse mind, and Lama Zopa loved that song, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, because he said that's it, that's life. And so other people are in exactly the same boat, looking for some sense of satisfaction and happiness, and they might be doing some really dastardly things to get them. But we need to develop ways of, again, it's if you can do something about a situation, then you act on it. If there's nothing you can do about it, then there's nothing you can do about it, and don't get upset about it. But also understand that these people, even the worst people that you can think of, and that's not hard these days, to think of some pretty dreadful people, but even they are suffering human beings, and they are making themselves happy in very, very wrong ways. But they are also, and at that level, deserving of our compassion, because, and this, you can bring in reincarnation here, that karma is very real. Karma is a force in the world. It's a form of energy. It's not some airy-fairy thing that's sort of up there, and God doesn't determine karma. Your energy is your karma. Your body, speech and mind, your energy of the way you act, the way you speak and the way you think is karma. And that energy, and scientifically we know that nothing comes from nothing. Energy creates the next moment a piece of energy. So energy affects energy. And that's all karma is. It's not some notion that we sort of wish was true or hope was true. It's just your energy. So all your habits, all your thinking, all your actions will have an effect, cause and effect, and will determine the next moment. And that the mind itself, this clear and knowing space, which is not physical, is infinite. it just continues to create. So that by creating positive imprints, positive energy, you get more positive energy. So the more that you do this, the more it expands, the more you feel it. And they describe it as the metaphor is planting seeds. So you plant a seed. Then there are causes and conditions. There are the parents that you were born to. There was the schools you went to, the friends you've had, all of the influences on your life, whether you had a religious upbringing or not, or whatever. All of those influences come to sort of work on the seeds of karma. So if you have the seed of anger in your mind, when the causes and conditions are right, that anger will arise. For some people, they might not get angry in that same situation. But for you, because the seed is there, it will ripen and you'll get angry. So the more you plant, and then you're planting more seeds, you're creating more energy in your mind of anger. And then that creates more anger. And that's why they say non-retaliation, because you want that karma to end. So if you're in an argument with someone, in a battle with someone, it's really good to be able to kind of not get angry, not get upset, maybe let them win, and you've finished that karma in your mind. I hope this is making sense. Yeah. So whenever I see beings that are wicked in nature and overwhelmed by violent and negative actions and suffering, I shall hold dear this one, so hard to find as if discovering a precious jewel. Now the precious jewel is something that it's like winning Tats Lotto, you can get everything you've ever wanted, that's a precious jewel. So they're sort of saying that's how you treat these people, because you're going to develop your mind in relation to those people. They're actually going to help you develop patience. They're actually going to help you develop non-retaliation. And they're actually going to help you develop kindness and compassion. If you think of them as like these really messed up, deluded masses of energy that they're creating more problems for themselves, more anger for themselves, which is impacting everyone and everything around them and creating more and more problems, they're an object of compassion. Because eventually, and really in the moment, I can't see that as a very peaceful and happy state to be in. But eventually, their karma will ripen in negative ways for themselves. And, it's hard for us to see, and nobody can really see karma. We don't know anybody else's karma. We kind of know our own. You can kind of look at your own life and see that maybe something that, did a long time ago, I understand that's probably, that could be related to what's happening now. Or you can just look back at your own life and regret things and sort of think, well, yeah, maybe, And so when things are happening, is another way of looking at it. It's like it's okay, it's ripening as karma, but it's like saying green Tara mantras for the car. I've wasted that bit of karma. When something really bad is happening, you can actually say to yourself, okay, this is due to some karma in my mind. I'm experiencing this. Nobody else is. These are causes and conditions that have arisen in my mind for me to experience this, and it will pass. And then that piece of karma is gone, and I've burnt it up. So there's another way of viewing a bad situation, as this is actually getting rid of some negative karma. And the other thing they say about karma is that it increases. So the longer I'm carrying these karma, the bigger the consequence will be, the bigger the effect will be. So it's burning it up now, and you can, in a way, you can kind of say that's great. I will survive this, and then it will be gone. and that karma's burnt out. And I'm learning love and compassion, and I'm planting positive seeds in my mind for good karmas. And no matter what happens, the more positive minds that you can generate, you can deal with whatever's happening. And we do that with meditation. We sort of, all of this information in the philosophy, and then you meditate on it. So they say listening, contemplating and meditating. So you listen to this stuff and then you think about it if it makes sense for you, and then we meditate. So we're going to do a meditation now on Chenrezig. Chenrezig is the embodiment of not just compassion but also the wisdom element. Method and wisdom. They're the two things that you need to purify your mind, to increase your own peace and happiness. So the mantra, and I'll say the mantra, and it's pretty easy to pick up. It's Om Mani Padme Hum. The Om is sort of the body, speech and mind of the Buddha. It's a letter that has three parts to it. There's two accents onto it. It's A, O, Ma, and it's body, speech and mind. And you sort of say, sometimes in a yoga class they'll say, you go Om. So it's actually got three parts to it, but it represents the body, speech and mind. Mani is the compassion aspect of the mantra. Padme is the wisdom aspect. Padme means, Mani means jewel. Padme means lotus. Sometimes you meet Tibetans called Padme. And the lotus is, in this instance, represents wisdom. Om Mani Padme Hum, and Hum is the unification of the two, bliss and wisdom, method and wisdom in your mind. And the wisdom is ultimately refers to this interdependence of everything, that nothing exists inherently and solidly as we normally see things. And we'll get more into that later. So it's the wisdom of emptiness, but it's also the wisdom of knowing the difference between right and wrong. So it's any kind of wisdom is referred to here. So by saying the mantra, they say that the vibration of saying the mantra is good energy in your psyche. And by visualising Chenrezig, so difficult for people on that side of the room, I'm sorry, but some of you might know Chenrezig. He's holding his two hands in the middle with the wish-fulfilling jewel. His right hand is holding a rosary. Sometimes you'll hear the word mala, they call it a mala, a rosary, and that's of the realisations of all the sort of aha moments of good, positive things. And the lotus is bodhicitta in that instance. That's right, isn't it, Ingrid? So the lotus can represent bodhicitta, which is the wish to become enlightened in order to benefit all sentient beings, and that's that state of mind. So it's all of the ingredients of the enlightened mind in Chenrezig. So he's got jewels on his head and he's got silk cloth wrapped around him, and he's sitting on a lotus and moon disc, again representing enlightened states of mind. I won't go into too much more detail. We'll think about the mantra when we say it. So, right. Okay. So again, just bringing yourself into meditation posture, head tilted slightly forward, not too far forward, don't raise your head too high, you get a bit distracted. Gently closing the eyes. Left hand down and the right hand on top with the thumbs touching, or the hands wherever comfortable, and the spine straight. And so just relax your body and mind and bring your awareness into the present by just mindfully watching your breath, bringing yourself back, letting go of thoughts and feelings. Bring yourself back to the breath. Just letting any thoughts pass, just focusing on the breath. Or generate a positive motivation for doing the meditation, that we can free ourselves of our negativities and fill our minds with all positive energy in order that we can benefit all other beings. So imagine that all of space is filled with beings sitting around you and extending beyond the horizon. If you find it difficult, think of all beings. To think of all beings, think of as many as you can comfortably. Your mother is on your left, your father on your right. The female members of your family are on the left, the male members of the family are to your right. Friends behind you. And people you don't get along with in front of you. And others all around you. Contemplate the suffering of these people and beings. First think of the suffering of your parents and the other people you are close to. Open your heart to the physical and psychological problems they are experiencing, and think that just like you, they want to be free of suffering. And feel how wonderful it would be if they were free and could enjoy the peace and bliss of enlightenment. Now think of the people you do not like, who have hurt you. Imagine their suffering, physical pain and discomfort, feelings of loneliness, insecurity, fear, dissatisfaction. Just like you, they don't want problems, but they have no choice. As long as the mind is confused and ignorant of reality, it cannot find peace. Open your heart to these people, for whom normally you feel irritation or anger. Expand your awareness to take in the troubles and pain of other human beings and animals, whoever has an uncontrolled mind necessarily has suffering. But don't be overwhelmed by all of this, remembering that suffering, unhappiness and pain are mental experiences, impermanent and changeable. They arise because of misunderstanding and confused emotions. Once their causes have been eliminated, they disappear. It's a matter of each one of us working on our own mind, dealing with our own misconceptions and negative energy, and gradually developing a correct understanding of the way things actually exist. Feel strongly the aspiration to do this yourself so that you can help others to be free of their suffering. Now visualise above your head and facing the same way as you, Chenrezig, the manifestation of pure, unobstructed compassion, love and wisdom. His body is white, is of white light, transparent and radiant. Try to feel his living presence. His face is peaceful and smiling, and he radiates his love to you and all beings surrounding you. He has 4 arms, his first 2 hands together at his heart, and hold the jewel that fulfills all wishes. His second 2 hands are raised to the level of his shoulders, the right holding a crystal rosary and the left a white lotus. He's sitting on a moon disk upon an open lotus. His legs are crossed in full lotus position. He wears exquisite silk and precious jewels. Try and hold your awareness on this visualization. Stay relaxed and comfortable and open to Chenrezig's serene and loving energy. Now make a prayer from your heart to overcome your misconceptions and negative energy and to develop pure love and compassion for all beings. Feel that you are connecting with your own true nature, your highest potential. In response to your request, Avalokiteshvara, Chenrezig lovingly sends streams of white light filling every cell and atom in your body. It purifies all your negativities and problems, all your past harmful actions, and your potential to give harm in the future, and completely fills you with this limitless love and compassion. Wishing you to be free of suffering and wishing you to be happy. Your body feels light and blissful, your mind peaceful and clear. The light from Chenrezig radiates out to every living being, purifying their negative energy and filling them with bliss. Now, while concentrating on this visualization, we'll recite the mantra. I'll chant it a few times, and then you can just quietly say the mantra in your own, quietly. We'll just say the mantra for a while. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Now visualise Chenrezig dissolving into white light, which flows down through the crown of your head and reaches your heart centre. Your mind merges indistinguishably with Chenrezig's mind, and you experience complete tranquility and bliss. Holding this feeling as long as possible, and whenever your usual sense of I starts to arise, an I that is bored, restless, hungry or whatever, think that this is not your real self. Simply bring your attention back again and again to the experience of oneness with the qualities of Chenrezig's mind, infinite love and compassion. So finally, we'll dedicate the positive energy that you have created by doing this meditation to the happiness of all living beings. And then bring your mind back to the room. So that was it's recommended to do that with the 8 verses of thought transformation, and we might do a short version of it next week. So I've been through the description. Okay. Are there any questions? I know that's a lot. I don't actually normally do the deity meditations, so but I checked with a couple of people last week, so I hope that that's okay that we did that. Yeah, and it's really about it's the energy. It's not, and you don't have to be Buddhist. It's not about doing some weird and wacky sort of Buddhist thing. It's about this visualising, having something to hold on to with your mind. Visualising this positive energy. So, as I said, this is something that all little children, Tibetan children, it's the first thing they would be surrounded by these images in their homes and stuff like that, so it's easy for them. It's a culturally sort of easy thing for them. But that's, so you can do that any time, just visualising Chenrezig above your head and filling you with light and saying the mantra. You can Google the mantra of the Buddha of Compassion, if you didn't quite get it, but yeah. Okay. So there's cake and tea in the dining room. Also, sorry, just before we go, we're having a one-day course, and we have 3 Geshis here. Geshe means they've studied this philosophy to the level of a master's degree in their tradition, so they're highly, highly practiced and versed on all of this stuff, and they're really terrific. So Geshe Losang will be teaching a one-day course on Sunday the 16th. So we come and do a bit of meditation. He'll come and teach. Then we have a break. Then you do the morning meditation, we have a break, then he'll teach and we have lunch, then we have a discussion, and then he'll teach again in the afternoon. And it's a pretty relaxed day, and the topic is how to find happiness through love and compassion. So you can never hear it often enough. And to come for a day and sort of immerse yourself in it for a day is quite lovely. I don't think there's any other announcements. So thank you all.